All right. Welcome, everybody, to our guild chat here on Saturday afternoon, the day before Easter for many people. Today we have the Exiles of Gondolin from the Origin Shard, and I'm pretty excited about this interview today, and have been looking forward to it for some time, having been a fan of one of their members' player fiction for quite some time. I've really been looking forward to interviewing the rest of her guild. For those of you listening in, before we get started here, I'd like to make a note and mention that if you're interested in also participating with the other listeners and talking with each other, just go to uoradio.com, and on the left side you're going to see the IRC chat link. Click on that. That'll give you instructions so you can jump into our chat room. You can talk to the other listeners, to those guild members that are being interviewed today, and as well as the other DJs and station managers and anybody else who comes to hang out and chat about the interview. Gives us great feedback, and we get an opportunity to hear your questions for the guild as well. So, with that said, what I'd like to do is start out by having each of our guests here introduce themselves. Basically, just give us your character's name and your role in the guild, and then after we talk about the guild itself later on, we'll get into the history behind your characters and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and start it out with Eowina. Go ahead. You're first up.
Hi, I'm Eowina. I am the emissary for the guild.
Great. Eve, go ahead.
Well, obviously I'm Eve, and I think my chief role is to die a lot so that others can really look good.
That's my role in my own guild as well. Maddox, I believe you are the guild master, correct?
Yes, I'm Maddox. I'm the guild master and general nuisance to everyone else on the shard.
That is also the general role of most guild masters, in my opinion. At least most of them that I've met. Marzan, go ahead. You're next.
Well, I am Marzan the Third in the guild, actually. Marzan being the third character I've created with the same name. I haven't really got a job yet. I'm still rather new.
Source gatherer extraordinaire. No, I'm kidding. Rhea, go ahead.
Obviously I'm Rhea, like Eve said, and my job is to be a pain in Maddox's butt.
That's excellent. Why don't I want to get a good idea of what EoG, for those who play on Origin and see the guild tag all the time. I'm going to refer to it as by the guild abbreviation, is all about. Does anybody want to speak up? Maddox, I mean, as a GM, you want to go ahead and tell us the history behind it? Origin's a relatively new shard. I mean, it's less than a year old, isn't it? Yeah, it's less than a year. Maybe it's a year. 2 years. No, yeah, it's about 2 years. A little more than 2 years. A little less than 2 years old. Did you guys all originate from the same shard, or did you just kind of gather on Origin? Being the guild master, I'll let you run with that first.
Basically, we all found each other on the shard. A few of us knew each other, on other shards, such as Dip and myself knew each other from Pack. But we all just generally gravitated towards Origin and met through the roleplay community.
Oh, that's great. Okay, and that brings up a good point. You guys are a role-playing guild, which is mostly the reason that I was looking forward to this interview. Is that you do roleplay. So through the roleplay community, you guys kind of were drawn together, and found each other on the Origin shard. So, where did everybody else come from? Eowina, where'd you originate from?
I was originally on Lake Superior.
And what brought you over to Origin? Did somebody ask you to come over, or did you just jump over to that, or did you just want a fresh start?
Basically, I was dragged kicking and screaming away from all of my resources and housing on Lake Superior by someone else who wanted to play on Origin and has since gone away.
I know the feeling. That's what dragged me over to Siege, actually, was dropping everything and coming over to try it out. So I know exactly where you're coming from. Seeing that you're still there, it wasn't a bad move. Marzan, where did you come from?
I originated over on Napa Valley Shard, actually. Wanted a fresh start and see if I can get myself a nice big old castle over here on a new shard, and, well, didn't get the castle, but I got a nice 18 by 18 tonight.
Nice. Yeah, that Origin, I think I have I have 4 to 6 characters on every single shard from back when I was doing reporting for Stratix, just so I could show up for different events. But Origin, yeah, I created a character right away too, and the housing went quickly. It was sort of like when Sonoma first opened, which was my last shard. Anyways, Rhea, go ahead. Where'd you come from originally? Why'd you go over to Origin?
I was dragged kicking and screaming by my other half who doesn't play anymore, and I came from Europa. Markman, I got to place a castle.
Now, I don't. Now, Ray, I don't sense or don't hear a accent anywhere there. Why did you choose Europa? Why was that your original shard? Do you reside over on the other side of the pond?
No, I'm actually from Minnesota. I just started playing there because that's where he played.
I gotcha. Okay. Who wants to give me a breakdown on the history of your guild? What's the background to the guild? What are you guys all about? I mean, you guys roleplay, and you roleplay elves. So, based on that, what is the origins, no pun intended, of Exiles of Gondolin? Whoever wants to speak, go ahead and put your hand up. Somebody's got to be able... There you go. Go ahead, Marzan.
Well, I don't know much about the Exiles here, but a really good friend of mine, Rhea, down there, actually brought me over to them. I had spent too much time in Feluca, was getting tired of it, PvP all the time, and needed a bit of a change. I hadn't role-played in probably years, and she gave me a chance to give it a shot again. I've been slowly clearing away the role-playing cobwebs as I've been with these guys. Really good group of people.
That's good to hear. Max, what's the storyline behind it? Is there any at all? I mean, how were the elves formed over there? You guys reside on Tokuno, or Zento rather. Where did you? What brought you guys there?
Okay, what brought us there is we used to be in another guild, but when focus was lost on a group instead of had gone to individual, we moved and formed Exiles of Gondolin, sort of based on the Tolkien Silmarillion book.
Oh, okay, that's good. Go ahead.
Okay, and Tokuno was chosen mostly because we were able to control a general area of it. It was an area that wasn't used for role play or very much anything, so that we were able to just more or less take it over and construct it to what we needed it for.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have done that on various shards because it's so underused over there, and it does allow for housing, unlike Ilshnar. That makes for perfect opportunity. Let me look at my list here. I've read a lot of your guys' player fiction over on UO forums, by the way. And you guys are great. We do a fair share of ours over on Siege, and everybody who knows me, Aelina, knows that I'm heavy into the White Stag forum over on Stratix, one of my favorite forums of all. You guys roleplay elves. Have you guys always played elves? In other words, was EoG formed before Mundane's Legacy came out? And if so, did you just role-play the elves as humans, on your paper dolls, obviously, not in character? Or did you just wait until that was introduced and that became the reason for choosing that role? Any of you, go ahead. Go ahead, Maddox, you're first.
Well, we've always, basically, when we were in Elf, in one of our original guilds, we've always played as elves, even as humans. And then Exiles of Gondolin was formed after Mundane's Legacy, and we've just been enjoying playing elves ever since.
Yeah, it was a great opportunity. I was, while I'm a bigger advocate of seeing the orcs be introduced, we'll get into that later, but the elves, on the other hand, I have a lot of friends who've role-played elves for years, and they were ecstatic about it. Aoina, go ahead.
Well, I just pretty much was going to say what Maddox said, except that my character is as old as UO is old. And I have been an elf since the beginning. Played an elf while we couldn't look like anything but humans, but have always been an elf. Mundane's Legacy was a gift.
I've heard that a lot from a lot of people who were happy to see Mundane's Legacy come in with strictly the reasoning of the elves being introduced into the game, and I agree. I think it's a great idea that they do that. Let me see here. How about the orcs? Are you guys looking forward to orcs being introduced as another race? Traditionally, even in the Tolkien sense, orcs are the elves' enemies, and not to mention humans, but elves. Eve, go ahead.
Hello. I came from the Atlantic Shard, and I have always played an elf, even as a human. And they had a very, very strong orc guild there. And we had a whole beautiful scenario going between the orcs and the elves. And it was great. So I am really looking forward to having some orcs in-game.
How is the orc population on Origin right now? Any of you?
Well, personally, I only know of one. Some of the others may know some more.
Now, Maddox, go ahead. Yeah, the orcs were pretty... there were a lot of orcs on Siege for a very long time. They were a very prominent guild. I know the guild you're talking about, Eve, on Atlantic. They were huge. Pacific also had a very big population of orc guilds. Even breaking off into about, I think it was at one time during the peak back in 2002 was, maybe 2001, 8 different clans. And that would just be ripe opportunity for elves to roleplay, having enemies, you could work factions in, that sort of thing. Are you guys looking forward to the repopulation of orcs and reintroducing them, hopefully as a character race and not just throwing orc visages on? What do you guys think? Go ahead, Eve.
Okay, well, I think it's absolutely fantastic. Before we played elves and they played orcs, we had a lot of stuff happening, and we didn't have the visuals to go with that. So I'm really anxious now that we can be elves, blue or yellow or whatever, and see the orcs come out as orcs. I'm hoping we'll revitalize some of the role play. There is not a whole lot of that on Origin. Of course, it's a fairly new shard, and we're a fairly new guild. But I'm really anxious to see him come back.
I'm the same way. I have a lot of friends that were orcs on various shards that I'm so looking forward to them giving the orcs some love and bringing them back to UO, because a lot of them quit for the fact that they weren't. I mean, basically they had to run around equipment which was dry looted, and to roleplay your character basically to appear human all of a sudden means you go back and you re-equip again. Otherwise, for me, I just don't see them coming back until they introduce the race. Hopefully it'll be soon. I've seen a few people poke their heads in, so we'll see. Did anybody else have any more comments before we move on to the next topic? Go ahead. Marathon, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to see the orcs come back just so I can actually play one as a race. It'd be fun to fight on both sides of the fence myself.
That's evil. Go ahead, Eve.
Well, I was just going to say, the crafters got love when they protested and stormed Britannia and carried on. And maybe we need to do that to get the orcs back in game. They seem to be listening to the players a lot now. So, maybe we need to do a protest or something.
Ooh, don't get me on that tangent. Anybody seen my post in U-Haul knows. Watching the tangents over on U-Haul for me is like driving by a family planning clinic. It just sickens me. Not that my view is either way. Anyways, and look at my notes here real quick. You guys are active, and from what I've read, you guys are active in both PVM and PvP. You guys, obviously, from what I think it was, what Marazon said, tired of the Felucca side? So are you basically, are you Trammel-based or are you guys Felucca-based? Where, or do you even have a central location for all of you, or are you just spread out? Go ahead, Maddox.
Basically, our guild is based in the Trammel side, but we have several outposts on the Felucca side, and we don't tend to allow the boundaries of facets to stop us from seeking roleplay.
That's a good attitude. That's a very good attitude. Well, with that in mind, while I got you there, Maddox, what kind of PvP do you guys involve yourselves with?
Well, the kind of PvP we try to involve ourselves in is the kind where we're winning.
That's a good kind to have. I'd love to experience some of that myself with 12 or 1,300 death robes in my collection. How about so you guys are on Trammel, on the Trammel side. Are you guys located in a central location? Do you have like a player to run town? Go ahead. Alina.
We do. It's not really a town. It's just more of a central core of buildings that we operate from. We call it the Elven Enclave of Cento. And the buildings consist of a couple of private homes of our members, and we have a tavern with a few vendors outside, and we meet there occasionally just for some role play. We also have the temple, which honors the four elements, and in which we also house a very nice rune library. In addition to that, there's a guild headquarters building. So if you go west out of the Zinto gates, you'll find us.
Very nice. So, what about player-run events? Do you guys host anything like such as that? Festivals or whatever. Anything to bring people in to enjoy your guys' role play? That goes out to any of you, by the way. Go ahead, Iwina.
Well, we haven't actually hosted any events to this point other than a crafter evening just to get some people to drop by and meet us right after we first started. It's something that I'd like to do in the future. We're still pretty small yet. And you know very well that in order to host a quality event, you need a lot of people and a lot of staffing and people willing to commit their time to such things. So that's something I'd like to see us be able to do in the future when we grow a little bit. But at this point, we've not yet jumped into that.
By small, I'm looking at your numbers and comparing them to the numbers in my guild and a few of my other friends' guilds, which are single digits and maybe double digits, tops 20. To consider that a small guild is kind of almost humorous to me. You guys got quite a following there. Are they made up mostly? And this is a really good question. Are they made up mostly of your alternate characters, or do you guys just have such a huge following of people on Origin that want to be elves? Go ahead, Marzan.
Well, I'm the only one in, this character's the only character in this guild at the moment. I have, other characters that are in another guild, and this one is the one I escape on.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's good to have a character to disappear into roleplay with if you don't do it in other guilds or whatever. Go ahead, Eve.
I personally have several alts in the guild, so that accounts for some of the high population. I think several of us do.
Go ahead, Aelina.
Yes, I think several of us have several alternates in the guild, so probably the numbers that you see there are fewer actual real bodies than character bodies. But we have, I would say, probably 10 or 11 actual real folks in the guild. So the numbers that you see on the guild roster are somewhat larger, as is usually the case with a guild.
That's a good point. Go ahead, Eve. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think one of the nice things about our guild is that the majority of us are active, very active members. We do not have a large population of people who are members in name only. So we do a lot of things together. We know each other fairly well now, and it's just a neat group of people.
Well, that's a good point. I've been a THB member on various shards for all my UO career since it was concepted, Treasure Hunters Britannia, and there have been different shards where I've just gotten so frustrated because the numbers were infamous. I mean, there were just 120 people in a guild, and 3 would be active or show up for a meeting or something silly like that. So it is probably a good idea to just have the people who are active, be part of the guild. Publish 40, have any of you guys been keeping up on these developments that are coming up? Not to switch subjects. Well, okay, yes, to switch subjects, but just curious. Not that you do much PvP, but as far as PvM goes, I know how this is affecting other people. How is this going to affect the way you guys go out and do your hunts, or however you do it? The changes have been posted. Do you guys have any thoughts on the changes? Do you care? I know that a lot of people are pretty upset that are on the PVM side of it. Do you guys go out and do champs, peerless, etc., making the monsters harder, whatever? Marizan, go ahead.
Well, some of the peerless have gotten a little bit too simple. You figure out a good way of killing them off, and, well, you just keep doing it that way and farming your boss regs and whatnot. So I think the PVM side of it will be pretty nice. It'll make it a little bit more challenging. As far as the PvP, I'm waiting until they get rid of the Star and Honor that some of the blues do in PvP. That would be nice.
Yeah, it'll be nice to when they even out the PvP altogether. You guys do many hunts, by the way? What do you guys do when you do PVM together? Or what do you guys do when you're out together, period? Being a tight guild like that, what are your basic activities on any given day? Go ahead, Maddox.
Well, we'll tend to do a lot of peerless spawns. We do a lot of ill spawns. And we also just tend to go out and just do a lot of adventuring and just goofing off.
That's kind of fun. Yeah, absolutely, for that group of people. Oh, go ahead, Eve. I'm sorry.
We just did a quest for Lenley the Snitch. And I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but Lenley lives in Sanctuary. And it was kind of an ongoing quest thing, and like when we weren't busy doing something else, it was just a neat thing for one or two of us to go out and do. And I'm looking forward to doing more of those. As I said, we are a fairly new guild, so we're kind of feeling our way through a lot of this. But most of us love hunts and love doing the peerless and that kind of thing. And we do, I don't know, we try to do several a week when we can get enough people online at the same time. Can't have one. You got to have 4 or 5, I think, to make it a fun thing to go do.
Yeah, I hear that. Absolutely. The peerless, I've never done a peerless myself, to be honest. I just did my first champ spawn the other night, as a matter of fact. It was educational at best. And yes, 4 or 5 people, that is definitely a must. It's good to see, but you guys are pretty interactive with each other, which makes a big difference. Since that's Pub 40, and it doesn't seem to affect you guys since it's mostly PvP changes, what about Pub 41? What do you think of all this stuff going on? I mean, do you have enough crafters in your guild to keep up with the number of items you're going to need? Do you have any concerns or whatever that how it's going to affect the way you guys do your peerless or your champ hunts or whatever you do? Go ahead, Aoina.
Well, you have to realize I'm simply an oblivious RPer. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to these things until they hit me. And then I have to deal with them. But as far as what we have available to us, we have every craft covered well between the various people in the guild. So I'm sure that we'll be able to handle that with ease. One of the things that we do is, for example, when we go out and do a peerless or something like that, we'll all come back and throw all the ingredients all into one bag so that we can make something for everyone in the guild. In other words, if we're going to make citrus mittens, it's not one person doesn't get them. We'll do it across the board so everybody has the advantage of having that particular piece of equipment. And we feel like that is part of what a guild is about, to pool our resources and share the things that we can make with our various crafts.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's self-sufficient. That makes a big difference. That's the only thing that I'm actually envious of, although I would never introduce it to my Shard Siege, is having the 6 character slots. It does make it handy, though. It really does. I've known people who have wandered around forever looking for a pet res or for somebody to enhance armor and stuff like that. So that is absolutely great that you guys are self-sufficient like that. Definitely makes a difference. Does anybody else have any concerns? I know you guys are mostly PVM, but anybody else have any concerns about the Pub 41, how it's going to affect you guys going in and fighting a Peerless, for example? I mean, your resists are going to be much lower, or are you guys already preparing for it now? Nobody? Oh, Mannix, go ahead.
Well, as for fighting a Peerless, we fight a Peerless probably pretty much like any other guild. You put a pet on it, you keep the pet up, you stay out of the area effect range of it. So as for fighting the Peerless, I don't see any problem there. For PvP, you'll probably see us banding together and staying close a lot more so we can get more damage out on someone. You'll probably see us calling targets in TeamSpeak or in Skype or some other similar program like that.
Okay, absolutely. I can see where that would come into play absolutely as well. Again, I'm so PVM challenged. I think the only times I've ever gone out and PVM'd have been solo or treasure hunts. I do a lot of treasure hunts. Otherwise, yeah, you guys are on top of the game as far as that goes, especially with the resources you have at your disposal. Viceroy, you had a question for the guild. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually got a few questions and everything. I'm kind of curious as to whether or not you guys have any gripes about the game or anything that you'd like to see maybe added to the game, taken away from the game, or maybe even improved on, in the game. Is there anything that you guys, just are not quite exactly, quite happy about or just not content with, or for the most part, are you pretty much content with every aspect of the game for the most part? I mean, I'm kind of wondering, where you guys stand on something like that. Anybody? Okay, go ahead, Rhea.
Okay, call me a crafter, but I seriously think that we need to address the issues with tailors and smiths because nobody buys the rewards anymore, which kind of limits the bods collecting system. So I personally would love to see new tailor rewards come out.
Good answer. Hold on. Okay. We recently discussed on a talk show. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aoina.
Oh, not a problem. I just wanted to add that I am hoping there will be other player races introduced. I think that would do a great deal to diversify the role play in Ultima Online. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I'm an elf because the armor's better, or I'm female because the armor's better. And I'd like to see that evened out.
That's a very good point you make, actually. I see a lot of that brought up. Elven armor, elven headgear, elven weapons even in some cases. Robes, some of them only usable by elves. What do you guys think when, now that you've been, handed a slice of your pie for roleplay purposes, the fact that the people out there who don't want to play elves or don't want to go through the elves quest are demanding that your armor and your clothing and everything else be made available to them as well. Does anybody have an opinion on that, or do you guys think you've waited for that as role-playing elves for so long that you should deserve to have it all to yourselves? What do you guys think? I know, Aoina, you said you want to see it even out. How would you go about doing that? Marizan, go ahead.
Well, for some of us who actually took the time to run around like mad people, getting the quest done to turn into an elf, you know what? If they don't want to take the time to do the same, well, they don't need the elven clothing or the elven armor. I mean, I still find that the regular leather armor that is, usable by everyone is still really good. I don't particularly use the elven armor except for the Darkwood armor set.
Uina, go ahead.
Oh, I just feel, by even out, I mean that there would be, if, for example, we had several different player races, there would be equivalent equipment available, perhaps, to each different player race, but I would like to see it not be identical to what either elves have or orcs would have or humans would have.
I kind of agree with you on that one. I would really hate to see, orcs running around with, elven headbands and stuff like that, or elven, flower wreaths around their head, that sort of thing. So yeah, for RP purposes, we would definitely want to keep it separate. I think that goes on to a lot of things that we've been asking Cat Hat and I think it was Grim Omen last month about here on your radio, was the fact of the headgear and the equipment and stuff like that having same properties, and this goes towards minor artifacts. If you're wearing something like the samurai helm, why can't a crafter, like a blacksmith, turn that into something like a headband for elves or, an orc visage, but still retain the original properties on that? Go ahead, Max, before we go on to Viceroy's question.
Well, as other races are introduced, I do see there is there has to be a difference between elf armor and human armor, because if dwarfs or hobbits are introduced, there's a different size difference there, and their clothes shouldn't be able to fit anyone else either.
That's a good point. Absolutely. Yeah, no. There is no reason for, in my opinion, when I think as far as in-game goes, there's no reason I should be able to stick myself into a set of elven leggings when the elf is supposedly supposed to be somewhat shorter. Well, not according to Tolkien's rendition of it, but in traditional sense, I shouldn't be able to wear them. Viceroy, you had a question? Or Eve, go ahead. I'm sorry. You had a comment on that. Eve?
Hi, I'm sorry. My question didn't have to do with clothing or crafting. It's a different subject, really, as to what I'd like to see in game. But if you want to continue along that...
No, go ahead. Absolutely. That was Vice's last question. Let's go ahead and finish it up. Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm excited about the crone that has come into game, the hints that we're getting as to the, hopefully, what will be a long-term scenario. I'm glad to see that being reintroduced, that type thing. We really need that. I would also like to see more in-game surprises. Not necessarily the kind where the town crier speaks out and everybody goes to one spot and almost brings down the shard with a lag. In the old days, they used to have, I think it was the seers, that would invade a town for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes or something. And it was, at that time, I was in Rivendell on Atlantic when they used to do that. And it was great because they would just pump a bunch of monsters in on us early in the evening or something. And I really loved that. That was a lot of fun. I'd like to see that happen again. I don't know if our EMs can do that or not, but anyhow, that's my take. That's the thing I miss and I want.
I'm right alongside you. I'm a huge fan of our event moderators myself, and I don't want to see them go anywhere at all. Matter of fact, I think that's one of our topics coming up. So I'll postpone my opinions of that, because I agree with you 100%. The crone, I'm concerned about the crone being around because many of our event moderators have not even gotten the heads up to go ahead with their arcs yet, so I'm concerned that this is going to become another automated scenario, which I'm not a fan of. I prefer the creativity of a live human being to flesh out the storyline behind it and that sort of thing. But I won't go onto a rant about that until later. Yeah, go ahead, Eve. You have one last thought on that?
Oh, I can rant on later. I was going to comment on the invasion of Britain that went on forever and forever and forever and drove so many people from the Brit Bank. That hurt the game, I think. For one thing, it's very difficult now to get to know new people in game. And places like the Brit Blank or the Brit Bank, and using the old blacksmith and that kind of thing gave people a chance to interact. And I'm kind of going from one subject to the other, but if there were some way to introduce that again, and I think that you touched on that when you said not automated.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And yeah, that is one of our topics, and I agree with you 100%. I remember running up to the blacksmith in Britain and waiting around, and then all of a sudden somebody said, "Go, do you need something fixed?" And I'd hand it to them. They'd take it, fix it for me, and hand it back, and I'd give them some gold, and once in a while they'd take it. The other time they'd say, "Nah, don't worry about it. That's what I'm here to do." So I agree 100% with you. Viceroy, do you have another question? Go ahead.
Yes, actually, I got a few questions. First of all, I want to know, just an idea as to how long some of you guys have been playing Ultima Online, so that way we get an idea as kind of, what kind of players we are dealing with here, So if you can give me an idea of how long you've been playing Ultima Online, because I know the reason, and I'm going to follow up with another question, and the next question I'm going to ask you is, why did you choose Origin as your home shard, or the shard that you play on now, rather than a much older shard? So I'm kind of wondering if it's, maybe you guys chose it because you're new to the game, or maybe you guys just wanted something different, or, just something, where you start out all over again pretty much, or what was your reason moving over to Origin, and just how long have you played the game? So I don't know who all's around still with me, but if you could turn on the little red light, it will tell me that you're still here with me, and you can answer the question. And so, I think it's Iwana, or Iwana. Just go ahead out. Just go down the list here. I'm probably saying it all wrong, so correct me.
I've been playing since the beginning of the game. The first month, within the first week that Ultima Online came on, I was playing on Lake Superior. Well, actually on several shards until Lake Superior hit. I hit the Elder shards, of course, first, but settled in Lake Superior. So I've been playing since the beginning.
Okay, and let me ask you another question to that. Why did you choose Origin now? I mean, I'm sure if you started out in the beginning, you was probably playing on Atlantic or some other shard, so why are you on Origin now?
Well, I think we kind of covered that a little bit before, but I played on, once the Lake Superior shard came up, I moved to Lake Superior and played there for a number of years. I was drugged to Origin by my husband, who wanted to play on Origin and has since quit playing again. But I very reluctantly departed from Lake Superior for Origin, but now I'm quite happy that I did.
Oh, okay. And so let me ask you another question to that. Have you guys pretty much, all known each other previously prior to moving over to Origin, or did you just move over to Origin and meet all these fine folks here today? How did that go?
Well, I don't think any of us, with the exception of a very few, knew each other before we got to Origin. We have just sort of fallen together through contact through the role-playing community on the Shard.
Okay, and would you say that the role-playing aspects on Origins are a lot better than some of the other ones? I mean, I would imagine that has something to do with with you moving over from Lake Superior to Origin. Maybe you found that Origin was a lot better role-playing wise, or what was your reason for kind of leaving Lake Superior?
Oh, well, as I said, I was drug kicking and screaming off of Lake Superior. However, role-play quality differs from shard to shard, and it was not particularly good on Lake Superior. It is pretty good on Origin, except that our population is so small on the shard that it limits some possibilities, I think. We just have to work on improving it.
All right. And okay, well, let me just follow up with another question since you seem to have a lot of answers for me. Just exactly what would you guys imagine that your guild is aspiring to be? I mean, are you guys aspiring to be one of the largest guilds on Origin, or are you guys aspiring to be a close-knit guild, for the most part, where it's more like a family-oriented structure, where everybody's family, or what kind of atmosphere would you say is more of the ideal within y'all's guild? And, what kind of direction do you guys want to go in with the guild and everything? So, Iwana.
We're not looking for numbers. I don't think anybody connected with the guild that wants to be known as one of the largest guilds on Origin. I think we're mostly looking for people who are interested in playing together and have some of the same goals in their play style.
I'd like to chime in real quick with a follow-up question on that one. As far as play styles go, you on your guild charter, it basically states PVM and some PvP and that sort of thing. Other than just peerless and champs and stuff like that, and just hanging out, what else do you guys do during your normal gameplay? During the week, do you have meetings? Do you get together and discuss guild politics? I mean, is there a big enough crowd that you need to do that?
There really isn't a big enough crowd that we need to do that. I think, for the most part, everybody's pretty informed about what's going on. We try to keep everybody informed through our forum site so that we all know what's going on. We don't, at this point, have enough people, I think, that would require any kind of formal meeting structure.
Go ahead, Eve. You have something to say about that?
Yeah, we all spend a fair amount of time talking to each other in chat. The majority of us are in-game, I don't know, several hours, couple hours during the day. So we have an awful lot of information that just passes back and forth in guild chat. We're really a very tight group, and I think we do a really good job of keeping everybody informed as to what's going on and what we'd like to do, what our goals are. And I think our basic goal, I think Maddox keeps preaching to us a lot. We're here to have fun. And that's what we're all about.
That's good to know. Absolutely. What do you guys think? You guys said you don't have a town per se, but like I said, we had recently discussed on your radio several weeks in a row, and I think it's an idea that we've been tossing at the Debs forever now. At least Viceroy and I and a few other people, Town Drunk I know is on board, of the idea of having a town stone in addition to the guild stone. Of course, it'd be a gump most likely rather than a physical things such as the retired guild stones, but the ability to put a town stone down in the middle of your guild's stockade or whatever you have, so that you guys can collectively contribute to it and give yourselves the resources, such as NPCs that you would only find in town, like a stable, or like a stable, or a bank, or hopefully not a bank. I hope they don't ever do that, but a stable, or a provisioner, or something like that. And then you guys have to contribute, like the community contribution system that's currently available. Would you guys be interested in something like that? Hey, Weena, go ahead.
I certainly would be. I think it would be lovely to be able to control some resources for our own town. I'm hoping that it wouldn't be on the level of the community collectibles. I know we on Origin have a hard time, particularly with the zoo, getting anywhere at all because of the small population. So I think it would have to be adjusted to accommodate. If you were going to have a guild-run town, it would have to be adjusted to accommodate the size of the guild, I think. Otherwise, smaller guilds simply wouldn't be able to afford it.
Well, that's kind of what we had gotten at in the past, was that it wouldn't actually be run by it could be controlled by a guild, but it may not be run by one. It could be many guilds. Each guild could contribute to the townstone. A town does not necessarily have to represent a single guild. There could be like villages outside, or you could have just a community. Like, for example, on Siege, we have a town called Iron Town, which is made up of about 7 different guilds. And they all contribute to the community in their own way. You're right about the community contribution. That was my only thought, the only idea I had to contribute. It could be gold on the fell side of it, the Felucca side of it. It could be kills. The more kills you have against the people you're warring with, or in factions or whatever, would contribute to the stone. There are many different ways you could do it, I suppose. What kind of things would you guys like to see? I mean, there could be, options of blessing your house, a guild house, or a town hall. Like I said, the NPC options were the obvious ones. Taxing was one that I liked, and I know Town Drunk likes that idea too. Tax them. Anybody that's on your townstone, you get taxed. You make money as a town. Are you guys interested in something like that, or even seeing a town system or a hierarchy system involved? I mean, it'd be kind of nice to see Maddox, the mayor of Britain, on your paper doll, wouldn't it? Go ahead, Maddox.
Well, of course, that type of title would be nice, but I would like to see that if you're going to tax somebody, you just don't tax the tax members. You tax people that are coming across into an area controlled by that town would be something I would like to see.
Like a road tax. Yeah. Or how about people who farm the trees that are in your town, or the mining that goes on in your town, or any of that stuff. Ayoina, go ahead.
Oh, just to comment back to Maddox, we don't call you the Bandit King for nothing, right?
Viceroy, go ahead.
Well, really, I think the best way to go about any system to where everybody would actually be, able to live with it would probably be a sales tax type system where, because then that would actually encourage and spur economic growth within a region or within a player town, because that would give people an incentive to try and lure people to their towns and everything, because it would in essence spark economic growth, because then if they can get people coming to their town to shop for their wares and everything else, then that would actually be an incentive for the town, because they could actually make sales taxes, which could actually help the go into the town treasury and stuff like that, where they can use it to purchase monuments and stuff like that, and then everything from there would simply be a maintenance fee, for so many monuments and stuff like that. If you want to keep them around, otherwise they just decay and fade away, just like how it was done in the Roman Empire.
Good point. The taxes, the sales tax is a great idea. Vendors have to pump their own gold in until their wares sell. I think it'd be a great idea, especially if if somebody buys something from you, you sell it, the vendor gets the gold that it's priced at, but it's all the buyer is also charged a sales tax, and that sales tax goes to the townstone, which whoever's running it gets put towards their kitty, so to speak, and thus keeps their services up and running. And I think that's a great idea. Speaking of which, do you guys have a player-run mall? Do you guys, with as many crafters as you have, does EoG, do they have a vendor mall, vendors, or do you just kind of suit yourselves for your trips out hunting or whatever you do? Go ahead, Maddox.
Yes, seeing how we do have several crafters and we also do hunt and do other stuff, we do have a EoG mall, but we also have other malls spread around Caesarea as well.
That's good to know. While you have the opportunity to speak to people who may not read Stratix or whatever, why don't you give us an idea where those malls are? Just so we can give you a little plug here.
Sure. You just go to Zento, travel west, and you'll find our mall right next to our tavern and our rune library. You'll find our little quad area. We also have another member who has a Luna Mall along the north wall. It's very easy to find. They're the ones holding the ice staffs. We have another member with another mall, Seven Sisters Mall, just south of Luna before you cross the bridge. And those are the ones that I know of at the moment.
Nice. So when you guys have these malls, are these just for your own, for each character's own benefit, or do you guys kind of collect everything? I know, like on Siege, the guild that I work with or that I've dealt with, sort of have a kind of a community collection, so to speak, or a pool that they pool all the money into so that they keep all the vendors alive in case somebody has to go on vacation. Or do you have any kind of system like that, or is that still in the works? Go ahead.
Yes. We do have a vendor that is specifically selling guild items, but everyone, that generally wants one does have the opportunity to place a vendor at any of these malls, and it's usually for themselves. Because economically, we are a pretty, strong guild in game. I think our current guild balance fund is over 10 mil at the moment.
Nice. I'm going to shoot a glance over at Catherine over in the IRC chat, only because I think our guild balance is at what, hon? 1.6 mil? Pretty pathetic. One question I did have was recruitment. You guys are, you said you had interest in growing. If somebody was interested in joining your guild, what's the process that they go through? Do they just need to kind of hang out with you guys, and then if it's a tight fit, you invite them in? Do they need to go to your forums? What's the process if somebody wants to become EoG over on Origin? Go ahead, Aowina.
Well, generally, if someone is an acquaintance of one of our members, that's generally how we've been recruiting at the present time, just by word of mouth and personal referral. However, if someone who is a total stranger would like to come in, they can always hit the forums and leave us a message. We do have some rules posted up there that they can give us a 3-paragraph biography of their character and why or they would like to be a member of EoG. So there are several ways that you could come into the guild.
Well, that's good to know. So, what kind of process do you have once they're invited in? Do you have any kind of initiate process? I know some people, some guilds are pretty strict about it. I know on my own chart, if you want to become a knight, you spend an entire year as a squire before you're even considered for knighthood, and even then it's gone through an entire ritual and that sort of thing. Are you guys that strict, or are you pretty loose as far as, hey, we get along with you? Welcome to the guild. Here's your new title. Or do you guys have that kind of system going on? I mean, it may be premature since you're a newer guild, but go ahead, Matic.
Well, we're pretty loose on that. In general, we're looking, for a group that's just interested in role play and having fun. And that's the type of people we look for as members that can, be part of that team.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I mean, any role play guild is a good guild in my book. There's nothing more frustrating than running out into the field and or into a spawn or something like that and seeing, oh my goodness, hold on, I've got a log. Larry King just came on. Gotta love the role-playing guilds, and I'm glad you guys are around. I had one more topic here I did want to discuss, though. You guys said you weren't into heavy PvP, but PvP was optional. Have you guys investigated factions yet? Have you even looked at it? If so, or if not, what could change in factions that would cause you guys to maybe take a look at it? Go ahead, Matic.
Yes, we've had several members. We've had like a sub-guild in factions, and our goal was to control, towns, place vendors, keep the, rates low, to make items like bottles, lumber, ore, and regs available at very low cost. But we just sort of, as factions became, I guess as more people started doing factions, we started having to spend more and more time guarding town sigils and such, and that was taken away from role play. So we just more or less pulled out of that, even though we did have some of the highest kills for a faction, and we were actually pretty good at it.
That's pretty impressive. Seeing that you were pretty good at it makes me wonder, how come? What was the decision? Why was the decision made? You had mentioned early on when we first started today that you guys moved to the Trammel facet only because you were frustrated with the Felucca side. What on earth? If you did so well, I should say, in factions, what made you decide to go? Maddox, go ahead. You're first.
Really the deciding factor was guarding the town sigils, because you're up against, so many other people who have much more time to dedicate to steal those sigils from you. So you'd have to steal them back or just guarding them, and that took away from a lot of other role play that we could have been doing. And just also the less people that are also in Fel, it means less opportunities to role play as well.
Good point. Rhea, go ahead.
Well, for me, it isn't that I'm frustrated with Fel. I go to Fel all the time, and I do PvP on a different character. So when I play this character, it's basically because I'm looking for role play. You can't always PvP.
No, I agree. I don't have much of a choice where I play, but when you're on a production shard, you do have an option. So what would you guys like to see changed in factions then? Is there anything in factions? Because I know it's broken big time. Some people still have some fun with it in its current state. But for you guys to get involved again, is there anything they could change that would, your ideas to change it? to get you involved again? Because it sounds like you guys were pretty good at it, at least on Origin. Go ahead, Marisan.
I wouldn't mind seeing the stat loss time decreased a little bit. I mean, 20 minutes in stat loss is a little ridiculous. You get stat loss, the other guy's going to knock you out just as quick, and you're back to 20 minutes of stat loss again. So stat loss would be a one thing for me.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Maddox, go ahead.
It's stat loss, but also I would also like to see maybe a bounty system implemented into there. For faction kills, the person with the most faction kills for the most points is worth so much, as is the faction commander and so forth. Maybe if they brought that back and a much more better system of controlling the market in the town. Improvements such as that would help a great deal.
Agreed. And that kind of leads into our previous topic where we were talking about, player-run towns, established player-run towns. If that could be a faction thing, come take over the town stone versus the seagull that's sitting in one of the cities. Or, there's so many ways you could go with it. But, no, you make good points. There are a lot of changes that need to be made to the faction system. I'm glad you shared that with us. Fleisberg, go ahead.
Yeah, I got a question about the factions and everything. You said, would like to have a lot of more control over factions and stuff like that. Let me ask you this. What are your feelings on people outside of factions being able to go up to a faction NPC, that sells reagents and boards and ore and stuff like that? What are your thoughts about them being able to go up to a faction vendor and actually purchasing, goods, at faction rates rather than, not being able to buy at all? I mean, do you have any problems with that? Any gripes about that? Would you like to see that changed or what? Go ahead, Rhea.
Actually, I think that's kind of a nice thing because you can get them so that they spawn a little faster than the NPCs and they're cheaper. I'd like to see Reds be able to actually use an NPC vendor rather than being called scum.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I kind of have to disagree with you on that one, but let's hear from Maddox. Go ahead.
Well, to me, it's not really a problem that the term outsider or non-faction person can come up to a faction vendor and buy. I sort of like that because it's someone that's in the town. They're coming to basically a town that you control, and they're buying your items. And and if you lose control, you'd want their support for them to get you back into control and things like that.
Yeah, I guess I can understand a little bit of that, but at the same time, I'm kind of like the kind of person who's like, well, why should you reap the benefits if you're not going to be contributing to, the success of the faction, to allow us to afford? I mean, because directly, there is no direct benefits other than maybe indirect benefits, maybe like you pointed out, Maddox, but other than that, there's just no benefits, and I just, personally don't feel like anybody outside of factions should be able to reap the benefits of those who worked hard in factions to provide them with. That's my only point of view. Go ahead, Maddox.
Well, I sort of view it as, building the community instead of just having two communities, a faction community and a non-faction community. We just have one community, and if you have a better community, then you have better role play, you'll have better PVM, you'll have a little bit more respect out on the field, and such. This is how I look at it as in the long run.
Yeah. Well, I wish it did, in essence, build communities, but I see it more as an exploit than anything else. That's just something I'm never going to change my view on. I just see people just, it would be nice if it did benefit the entire community, but I don't see it that way. Go ahead, Spiderback. I'm turning it back over to you.
Okay. I actually, unless you guys had any other questions, I'm looking over here in the IRC chat. Pretty much going to wrap it up for the day here. What I'd like to do is give everybody here on the panel an opportunity to say hello and invite everybody over to Origin to visit EoG. So let's go ahead and start with Aowina.
Oh, I don't know that I have anything specifically to add, but I would welcome people to come over and talk to us and find out what we're all about and join us. And the more we have, the more we can do.
That's great. And if they wanted to come over to Origin, how would they get in contact with you guys?
Well, they can contact us through the forums. We have our guild listed on the Stratix Origin boards as well, with contact ICQs and where they can find our forums. So basically, Stratix is the contact point, and I think most of the community goes there.
Excellent. That's good to know. So anybody who's out there looking to roleplay an elf and they're not happy with their current shard, go over to Stratix and go to the Origin Shard forum, and their guild is listed there with all the contact information. Eve, Marzanne, go ahead. You just lit up your light. Go ahead.
Well, you don't exactly have to be a complete elf. Marzanne here, I am actually a half-elf, so if you don't want to be a total elf, you can be a half-elf, and they're just fine with that as well.
And I'm probably going to get my butt kicked for not picking up on that, considering that my in-game wife, Catherine, over on Siege, is a half-elf and continuously kicks me for spouting out that she is an elf, a full elf. So, good point. Okay, so you don't have to be full elf. And from what I read, also, elven friends are welcome as well, meaning that humans could be introduced to the guild under certain circumstances, correct? Or am I way off base? Go ahead, Aowina.
Oh, I think under certain circumstances that might be allowed. But, boy, I'd sure have to take a good, long, hard look at somebody who didn't want to be an elf now.
Present company excluded. I refuse to go elf only because I like all those 20 points that I get in my jack of all trades. Comes in handy when you're shopping and you need to hide suddenly when somebody comes around. Eve, go ahead and say goodbye to everybody and let us, and basically that's it. Go ahead and say goodbye to everybody. Remind them who you are, by the way.
I want to thank you for having us. It's really nice to have a chance to talk about our guild. And take care. Enjoy. Have fun.
Yeah, it's more of my pleasure to have you guys on. Like I said, I've been watching your player fiction, whether it's Aowina's on the White Stag, over on UO Forums, wherever. I enjoyed it, and I really love role-playing guilds. Both me and Viceroy are huge fans of role-play and meaning in the game, cause, or something to cause you to do something in the game, rather than just mindlessly doing nothing. So, you got 2 thumbs up in my book. Aowina, you had something to add?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to add that the stories that you see on the White Stag are not mine completely. A lot of our members have contributed to those, so I just want to share some of the credit there.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, a lot of us who do write player fiction do the same thing. We'll pick up from other people's stories. I think between about 12 of us, we had one that was going for about 14 different threads leading up to me and Catherine's wedding on Siege, and now we got the Wakayama thing going on. It's a great thing. So if anybody's interested in doing that, somebody asked me once, I can't role play. If you can't role play in game, that's one thing. If you have a creative mind and you enjoy fiction or player fiction based on stuff that goes on in the game, what did Yoda say? there is no try not, whatever. You got to just give it a shot. You really do. It's kind of fun to play off of other people's contributions. With that said, Maddox, go ahead and give us your farewell for the afternoon, and go ahead.
Oh, I'd like to say thank you to your radio and their listeners for allowing us to come on and have this great and wonderful interview, so they learn more about us. And in the process, I hope that some of the listeners will come around and talk to us so that we can learn more about the listeners as well.
That's the whole point. And again, it's been a pleasure to have you guys. I hope it does drag a few people over to Origin to take a peek at you, and maybe you wind up with a few new members. And I've just been reminded there is no try, only do or do not when it comes to player fiction. By the way, that was it was on the tip of my tongue, and I couldn't remember what the hell it was. Marzan, go ahead and say your farewells to the audience here.
Well, no farewells, only come on over here to Origin, hop into character, and roleplay with us some more.
Excellent words. Rhea, any final words?
Well, just to say thanks for having us on, and thanks to everybody for listening to us. And if you see us at the bank, you can always say hey, too. We do talk. We're pretty friendly.
Okay. Well, you know what? It was my pleasure, and Vice's, and all of the listeners, actually, to have you guys on. What I'd like to do is go ahead and wrap it up for today. Today is April 15th, 2006, and this is the Guild Chat with the Exiles of Gondolin. I appreciate you all being here with us, and remember, tomorrow will be our talk show at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So tune in at the same time tomorrow to hear what's going on in the latest issues of UO. With that, I am going to hand it off to Viceroy, who will toss us into our next DJ. Everybody have a great weekend and a good Easter, if applicable.